Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger in her thumb and the shape of an L on her forehead. Well, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. Set to the rules and I hit the ground running. Didn't make sense not to live for fun. The brain gets smart but your head gets dumb. So much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get the game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
I think there's somebody who was like it's been the hardest working band in business.
Hey everybody, it's Zach and Kelly. 12 months of Mike. This is the halfway point. We're 6 months into our 12 months. And let me tell you, every once in a while I look at the graphic that I made on the website with all of the Mike faces lined up. And
first of all, most of them are Shrek's
most
face.
of them are like a full third of them are Shrek. Kelly and I were saying, we both, I think, want to apologize. We did not think this through. And I know that some of you warned us and were like, why didn't you do 54 instead of 4 goddamn Shrek movies? and I just have to say, with hindsight is 2020, I just have to say I fully agree. And I'm not looking forward to watching 3 more Shrek movies. It's literally like, I have to make sure that my mental health is top tier for the next 6 months, because I'm looking at March, we've got Goldmember. April, we've got Cat in the Hat. May, Shrek 2. June, Shrek 3. July, The Love Guru. And then August, my birthday month, I'm celebrating with Shrek Forever After. So I want everyone out there to pray for me.
Wait, what's my birthday month? This is like your like zodiac sign or whatever. This is what? Everybody look at the graphic and comment. Tell us what Mike you are.
Let's see. You were Wayne's World 2.
Oh, that's
okay. Not bad. That's not bad.
I guess I knew that.
Yeah, I'm Shrek 4, so you know.
Go down to the comments if you're in YouTube. If you're on our blog, there's a comment section there. Comment which Mike you are. We should do another graphic too with all of Mike Myers' ass in every movie.
Honestly, I think we could do it because Shrek's ass is in at least the first Shrek.
Yeah, no.
I sure found it.
Love Guru. Having not seen The Love Guru, I'm positive that The Love Guru.
Oh, I'm sure. Honestly, if The Love Guru doesn't have Mike Myers' ass in it, I'm going to be mad. It's like it's going to be the reverse of all of my other reactions to his ass.
Well, I'll work on that since I do the social media stuff now. That'll be my next thing that I'll work on.
That'll be, if we can do this.
That'll be the end. So it's like we see him coming towards us, and then at the end of 12 months of Mike, we see him leaving.
Yeah, it'll be the graphic for the last 6 months. We'll just be all of the butts lined up. So we are talking about Shrek, the first Shrek. I don't think this is the one that our fatigue is going to be showing. I think the main thing about Shrek 1 is that, what is there to say about it? It's such a cultural phenomenon. It's Shrek. It's bigger than any of us. This is definitely the most successful movie that we watched, the most like financially successful. This is the biggest. My girlfriend, when we were watching it, and she was like, "Is this the biggest Mike Myers movie?" And I think it is. Yeah, bigger than even Austin Powers. Yeah, Wayne's World. Of course, it's also barely a Mike Myers movie. So that's the caveat, is that it's not a Mike Myers vehicle in the same way that Austin Powers and even Wayne's World are Mike Myers vehicles. Although as we'll discuss, Mike did have, a pretty, he when he was cast in the role, he changed it in a lot of ways. So he made it his own, at least this first one. First, of course, we have to do some listener comments. Marty White said that he watched the first Austin Powers just a few days ago. I'd rather listen to Shandy by Kiss on an endless loop than watch more Mike. but I will watch more Mike because I'm masochistic. The Mike Myers experience is a form of penance, a kind of self-flagellation, which I think is definitely is accurate. Sometimes I am like, what did I do to make myself feel like I deserve this? And I'm not sure. But Callie responded to that comment and just said, I think for liability purposes, as much as anything else, we do not recommend doing this. This is not, we do not endorse watching Mike for 12 months in a row. Honestly, even the very moderate amount of Mike that we're imbibing, only one per month is still taking a massive toll on our fragile psyches. So I just, be smart. Just enjoy Mike responsibly, I think is what we're asking you. Our friend Humongous, he had a couple of comments. He said, I thought it was great in Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, that they mentioned Star Wars. I think they pretty much had to, since episode 1 was the first new Star Wars in 20 years. It's more like a joke about how they were opening against it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
Well,
I do think it's like,
now that I know that the words coming in, like not triangular, whatever, the Star Wars
the
text
crawl,
comes in.
the Star Wars
the crawl.
Yeah.
Now that I understand the context, because I did absolutely no research before doing it. So now that I understand why it does make more sense in the context, the way I was coming from it was just like the gag that everyone does. Like I remember even in video production class when kids figured out how to do that crawl, everything had to start with the Star Wars crawl. And it's like, that's stupid and played out, but it does make more sense in context. I still don't think it's funny, and I don't really like Star Wars, so that might be my whole thing. Right. I don't like Austin Powers or Star Wars. So I'm not the demographic for that joke.
And I think it does kind of speak to it speaks to one of our main arguments about the first two Austin Powers, is that one was kind of not timeless. It was still very much a product of its time, but it's making fun of something that's like old, so it doesn't necessarily feel less relevant in 2020 than in 1997. Whereas Austin Powers 2 felt so much like this is a comedy for right now. All of the references are 1999. We got Jerry Springer. We got, Star Wars Episode 1. It just doesn't, for me, it just doesn't work as well now, 20 years later, as it did at the time. And then Humongous also said we've got to do 12 months. I think we made a joke about doing 12 months of Rob Schneider, and he's saying that we should do that. I think I'm going to need at least a year before I consider that.
Does Rob Schneider even have in 12 movies? Like, I don't think he has 12 vehicles. We could probably do like.
You could pad it out with Sandler movies, because he's in all of those. But
I'm not. I refuse. I'm not doing that. There's no fucking way.
There are a couple that I do want to watch, but I'm not going to make. I would consider doing a podcast only about Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo. That's 12 months in a row.
Nope. Just to be clear, we are not doing that. Don't suggest it anymore.
Jukebox Cowboy said that there was one memorable gag in Spy Who Shagged Me, the Alan Parsons Project, and the rest of it was Porky's. I mean, that's fair. And then also, this is definitely my favorite username, House of 1,000 White Claws. He said, I just found this. Wow, they are clamping down on all the fun. Hope you both are well. And this comment threw me for a minute because what he means is YouTube, because we have to, obviously now we upload YouTube edits of our podcast with all of the copyright stuff out so that we don't get it yanked like the first Austin Powers podcast did. But I'm so used to people being mad at us because of our Kiss podcast that I was like thrown. I was like, wait, is he saying we're clamping down on all of Mike Myers' fun? But then he said he hopes we're well.
We're always on defense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we can't. We're like abused puppies that when you reach out to pet them, we flinch away. But yeah, YouTube is clamping. I mean, it's a little bit out of both columns. YouTube is clamping down on our fun. We're clamping down on Mike's fun. I mean, it's
Mike
fair.
clamped down on plenty of people's fun. He can have some fucking criticism about his shitty ass movies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Mike Myers army, the Mike army, to come to his defense.
What would the Mike fan base be called? Because there's like the Beehive,
right?
The future the Future Hive, which doesn't make any fucking sense. What other ones? Believers.
Share it in the comments if you can come up with a good name for the mic. So Shrek. Let's talk about Shrek. This is I have to say this might have been the movie I was least excited to watch so far, and it's not because of the quality of the film, because I think I basically expected Shrek to be a solid movie, and it was. It was fine. I was a little bit annoyed that I had to watch it myself because my 8-year-old son didn't want to watch it. He will watch Cat in the Hat with me, which is fucked up. That he's excited about that one.
Yeah, Shrek is such a better
Shrek
movie.
is so much better. But I think he has a similar like sense of irony that I do, though. I think he likes Cat in the Hat like partly as like a form of defiance almost, because he knows that it's stupid, so that just makes him like it more. So I can't say that he's not my son.
Well, that's the same reason that I like the like Kelsey Grammer Nightmare Before Christmas. That would be amazing. Christmas Carol.
Yeah, and in some weird way, Cat in the Hat is the funniest Mike Myers movie to me because it's funny that it exists. You know what I mean? Like none of the jokes are funny. It exists,
and we could have had a Dieter movie, which would probably not have been like as successful as like Austin Powers, but like almost definitely would have been funny. Like it would have been weird and interesting.
Yeah.
But instead we got fucking Cat in the Hat. But anyway, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, we don't want to. We'll have. I feel like Cat in the Hat's gonna be our longest podcast.
Part 1 and part 2.
So Shrek, yeah, I wasn't really excited to watch this myself, but it was fine. It's a good movie. It's I was actually surprised to read some of the things about it. This was an incredibly acclaimed movie, and it's definitely the most successful of the movies that we've watched. I see that it grossed $484 million worldwide against a budget of $60 million. I think that the closest in terms of gross, Spy Who Shagged Me was $312 million. And then the only other one that could maybe come close is the first Wayne's World, which is about 183. So yeah, Shrek is by far the biggest in terms of box office of any of the movies we watched so far. And I have to imagine that the only thing that might give it a run for its money are the other Shreks. I don't think, like, I know that The Love Guru bombed. I know Cat in the Hat bombed. I think Goldmember probably did fine, but I don't think it did as well as Spy Who Shagged Me. So this is the biggest Mike Myers movie, if we want to call it a Mike Myers movie. And it was very highly acclaimed. It was just last year, it was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry at the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And I checked this. This is the first Mike Myers movie that we watched, and which means probably the first ever, unless they really throw us a curveball and preserve The Love Guru. So the first DreamWorks animation film, the first animated feature not produced or distributed by Disney, and the first Mike Myers film to be selected for preservation by the Library of Congress. It won the first ever Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, and was also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. This was a huge movie. This is one that I remember seeing in real time, because I feel like you were about. It was about the right age for like a family viewing of Shrek.
Yeah, I think we saw it in theaters, and then we got it on DVD, and
it was one of our first DVDs. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching it a lot, and then I remember, at school, every time we didn't we weren't doing anything, which was often because school is stupid. There are many, many days that you don't do shit. They would just pop Shrek on, so I watched it at school all the time. Do you remember the special features on the DVD? There's that game, what was it called? It was like the morph game where you could take for some reason this was a game on the DVD. You could take the different parts of different characters and morph them together, so you could pick like Donkey's head and Farquaad's legs, and it would just be this freak.
Yeah, I think I do remember that. Yeah.
I think that was my favorite one because it would just be Donkey's like whole torso with Farquaad's tiny legs, and it just was interesting.
Yeah, that like early first generation DVDs where it was like such a novel thing, and they would always have these like weird bonus features. Yeah, it's interesting to watch this again to see how far computer animation has come along. I was watching it and I was like, people were so excited to go to the theater and watch basically a 90-minute PS3 cutscene because that's what Shrek looks like. Like I didn't
think it was too bad for what it was, though.
Yeah,
you look at the fur on Donkey, and it doesn't look, like they did so much work on digital fur technology for fucking cats, and that's like become the new standard. But like honestly, Donkey looked fine.
Right.
Like it doesn't need to look that good, honestly.
Yeah. So Shrek is based on a book by William Steig. I've never actually read the book.
I don't need to. I've seen Shrek.
Yeah, exactly.
Never need to read the book.
He was a cartoonist at the New Yorker. It was a children's book published in 1990. And actually, very quickly after it was published, Steven Spielberg bought the rights in 1991. As usual, I'm basically reading from Wikipedia. He originally planned to produce a traditionally animated film based on the book. But John H. Williams, not the Star Wars music composer guy, but one of the producers of the Shrek series, convinced him to bring the film to his studio DreamWorks in 1994. I think at some point when Spielberg had the rights, according to Wikipedia, he wanted Bill Murray to play Shrek and Steve Martin to play Donkey. So that's an interesting potential alternate reality there. After the movie was brought to DreamWorks, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who had joined the studio from Disney, from a very acrimonious departure with Disney. There's actually an article that came out while we were preparing for this podcast. It's this weird thing where we're kind of like on the fringes of the zeitgeist, like right after we did Wayne's World. The Mike Geist, exactly. I don't claim to have any effect on this, but it's like something in the air. I think all of us are just find ourselves being pulled back into Mike's orbit at the same time. So like right after we did Wayne's World, there was that Josh Gad, did the reunion of the cast, and I think Aerosmith were also there. And now Shrek. So this article is on the AV Club called Shrek 2 turned one executive's petty grievances into a box office fairy tale. So Jeffrey Katzenberg, he was a producer for Disney in the early 90s during their whole resurgence with, Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and all that. He was fired by Michael Eisner in 1994, and he co-founded DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. I did not know until I literally just read those words out loud that David Geffen was involved with DreamWorks, but he was. So Katzenberg was heading up DreamWorks, and something that I found really interesting about this article is I remember these times, because these are like movies that we were seeing in theaters a lot. But I was 11, and so I didn't know who Jeffrey Katzenberg or even Jeffrey Katzenberg. But I remember that like Toy Story came out, and then Small Soldiers came out, or A Bug's Life. And right before A Bug's Life, Ants, with a Z, and it's the reason why is apparently because Katzenberg, when he was working with Disney, he knew that those movies were in development. And so he went to DreamWorks and was like, we got to make a toy movie and we got to make a bug movie. Like, it's just, it's very fascinating. I don't think Shrek is, the closest analog, I guess, would be Monsters, Inc. That was Pixar's, but I don't really think of them as the same. Shrek is its own thing. Arguably the first DreamWorks movie to not be like a weird low rent knockoff of a Pixar movie. So Katzenberg began development in 1995. Nicolas Cage was initially offered the role of Shrek, but he turned it down because he did not want to look like an ogre. Which I got to say, the joke's on Cage because 10 years later.
I was going to say he was fine with merging faces with John Travolta, though. He's okay with looking like John Travolta, but not like an ogre.
Also, Janine Garofalo was originally cast as Princess Fiona, but she was fired from the project for unexplained reasons. And then I think the most famous story is that Chris Farley was originally cast as Shrek. What I had forgotten until we were doing the research is that he recorded nearly all of the required dialogue, which is almost like, I mean, maybe they wanted to have the chance to make a sequel, maybe, so they didn't want to release it. Because, I mean, if he recorded almost all of the dialogue, it seems like you could just keep Chris Farley in the role. But maybe they also thought people would be bummed. I don't know.
Yeah. At the end, it just says in memory. I feel like they probably also assumed that they would make more.
Right.
Like,
right.
How are you going to do that?
Yeah, because you can't cast a Chris Farley impersonator.
Yeah, either that or just take all of his dialogue and use a computer to make it say whatever. Just
put the words in different order.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't do that. They recast the role to Mike Myers, who in classic Mike form insisted on a complete script rewrite to leave no traces of Farley's version of Shrek. But he initially didn't do it. Surprisingly, he didn't do it in the Scottish accent. According to the DVD commentary, he had also tried using country and Canadian accents. But after he had completed recording all of his lines, when the film was well into production, he asked to re-record all of his lines with the Scottish accent, similar to that his mother used when she told him bedtime stories, and also, conveniently enough, used for his roles in other films such as So I Married an Axe Murderer and Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. After hearing the Scottish accent, Katzenberg agreed to redo scenes in the film, saying it was so good, we took $4 million worth of animation out and did it again. Myers disputes this.
After hearing this,
what did he? Yeah, what was it? Was it Fat Bastard saying he has a turtle head poking out that sold him on it? Myers claims that it didn't cost the studio millions of dollars. He said, what it meant is instead of me going in for 10 sessions, I went in for 20 sessions. I got paid the same. I don't know, though, because I feel like they would have had to throw out all of the animations, or at least like the lip syncing, right? Because I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that it cost them a lot of money.
I want it to have cost because it makes a better story.
Yeah.
I'm not above saying I don't care what the truth is. I like the idea that Mike Myers demanded the Scottish accent, even if it cost them $4 million. That's my chosen reality, and that's the one that I'm going to live in. Myers also says he got a letter from Spielberg thanking me so much for caring about the character, and he said the Scottish accent had improved the movie. I'm going to need to see a copy of that letter. I will say that the Scottish accent,
it works here. It's
does.
Probably the only place that I care. Like, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah,
I'd rather hear it here
and I think
than
part of it is because the fact that he says that it was like what his mother used when she told him bedtime stories. The thing about the Scottish accent usually is that he's constantly yelling. And in this one, he only goes up to Fat Bastard level like one, maybe two times in the movie. Like Fat Bastard is constantly at a 10 and Shrek has more range. So it's pretty inoffensive in the scheme of things.
What are the times he goes up to Fat Bastard? I could only, at the beginning where he's like, what a load of... That part.
Yeah, I think so. Like, moments of intense emotion, he goes to fat bastard levels, or at least he approaches. He probably never. I think he probably never actually reaches fat bastard level. A couple other things I thought were interesting. The film was originally intended to be motion captured, but it didn't work. It premiered at the 2001 Cannes Film Festival, where it competed for the Palme d'Or, and it was the first animated film since Peter Pan to be chosen to do so. So yeah, this is like this movie was huge. People fucking couldn't get enough of Shrek. It's just but it is good. It's just hard to detach from. Like, I think one of the things that Callie and I were talking about leading up to this was Shrek as meme culture. I think there's a whole generation that just thinks of Shrek as those bizarre, like, uncanny memes with like, like deliberately crude CGI. And it's interesting because, going back and seeing like how acclaimed and like all of this cultural legitimacy that the first Shrek was given. It was like the first Academy Award winning animated movie, Snow White didn't win the Academy Award, but Shrek did, and I just feel like Shrek's legacy is not that. Shrek's legacy is memes. And we were also talking about like when Tim and Eric were doing the like mock viral campaign for Shrek 3, and they dressed up as Shrek to go to the premiere. Like it's just different.
You know what happened though? It's like oversaturation of Shrek.
Right.
Same thing that happened with Austin Powers, where they made too many goddamn movies, and it's like it was fine with the one. I know they wanted to make more money, but the first one was fine. Honestly, they could have left it at that. Shrek 2 is all right. Didn't need it. Unnecessary. And then the ones after that are just terrible. And then, like my generation and the generation right after me probably grew up watching Shrek at school all the fucking time. They just, like I said, popped it on whenever there was nothing else to do. So it's like something to make fun of at this point, because we got too much goddamn Shrek, and it just became. And also, it's like, it's. I can understand the critical acclaim at the time, and even having watched it again, like, it's a good movie, but the movie starts with a toilet flushing and then Smash Mouth. And I know that there was like some irony in that, but it's also just hilarious. And one of the funniest things about the memes is that they reference Smash Mouth all the time. Right. Like I just like that Smash Mouth has become like that's part of Shrek now.
Yeah, so it's just like intertwined with Shrek. Like there's no you can't separate Shrek and Smash Mouth.
Yeah. I love Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
I'm not in the right age range for the Shrek memes. Those kind of passed me by a little bit. But one that I will recommend is somebody took a dog in a dog show and replaced it with a tiny Shrek, like jumping through hoops and running across beams and stuff. And that makes me laugh so much. I don't something about it. It's just little legs, little legs moving.
There's one it's made by the same person who did that A Challenger Approaches meme with the Ludacris song. That is my favorite thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just Shrek playing the saxophone. I love that one. And then I cannot find it anywhere, but I remember like years ago when I was on Instagram, I kept coming across those weird Shrek memes. And there was one someone did that was like, it was so disturbing. It was like Shrek's neck got really long and like kind of like curved all over the screen, like zigzagged everywhere, and then it like zoomed in and it was like a blown out version of that Itchy Ma song by Keith Ape, and Shrek was lip syncing it. That one I have it stuck in my head, like that imagery haunts me and has haunted me for the last like 5 years, and I cannot find that video. just Shrek with like, and his face was all screwed up too, so his like eyes are rolling back in his head, and he's just like, brah, brah. That image has haunted me for years, and I don't think it will ever get out of my head. So
there is something about Shrek where it's almost like the design is so it's like a fuck you to aesthetics. You know, it's like he looks so dumb. Like he's this like hideous shade of green. He's got those stupid ears. And then it's like
it makes sense in context, you know, but it's so fun. It's so funny outside.
And if you take it, if you take it anywhere out of context,
and iconic as well. It's like iconic enough to be funny if you like completely just like bastardize the imagery and just
right.
I love in those memes how like bad CGI is one of my favorite memes too, because it's like so funny. And seeing Shrek, like I love when they'll make him like move and his legs won't move, or he'll be like hovering. It actually reminds me of another DVD feature that they had, was like the making of, and they would show like how the animators were working and what it would look like before they finished the animation. It's basically that, but also Shrek doing fucked up things. There's an urban legend. I don't think it's true, but I again, this is my like headcanon. There's an urban legend that DreamWorks was working on Prince of Egypt at the same time as Shrek, and whenever animator would fuck up on Prince of Egypt, they would punish the animator by sending them to go work on Shrek.
I don't care if that story's true or not. That's a good story. So Shrek, I think one thing that we
haven't talked about Shrek.
One thing we mentioned in brief is that I would say this is the least Mike Myers movie we watched, and the Mike proof doesn't quite support that. It is technically a higher Mike proof than Wayne's World. Wayne's World, we were looking at a range of 148 to 162. Axe Murderer 166 to 170. Wayne's World 2 148 to 160. Austin Powers, that was a pretty high 186 to 234. And then of course Austin Powers 2 was a borderline deadly 235 to 245. So in terms of pure numbers, Shrek is respectable. It's 180 to 185. But I have to say something that might be kind of controversial. I don't think we should give it the full Mike proof rating, because we only ever, like, there was no motion capture. You know, he doesn't ever really appear on screen. It's only ever his voice. So if I really wanted to rate this objectively, I would say it could be no more than a 90 to 92.5, which is half. It's watered down.
I was thinking about why I didn't include 54 in this, and you know, it doesn't make any sense because this also doesn't really like fit in with that. But I've noticed that all of Mike Myers' characters are just like constantly in motion, and this I think goes into the Mike proof. Like, they all have a walk, they have a face. Right. After they've said something, they wiggle. Yeah. It's like, honestly, if you don't laugh at it, he leaves beats for laugh where he's just like squirming, and it makes it really uncomfortable to watch.
Harder to watch.
Yeah, because I'm literally like I've laughed a couple times, like, you know, mainly during Wayne's World, but the rest of them, like The Spy Who Shagged Me was a slog. Yeah, and he kept like doing it, and I feel like the more unfunny the movie is, the more he leaves for you to kind of like laugh. Yeah, right. Yeah, and then if you just keep your eye on him, because I'll, like, you know, when you don't think something is funny, you're not like, I was thinking about this, because if you're laughing, you know, you're throwing your head back, your eyes are watering, whatever. If you're just watching Stony Face, then you're literally just watching a man on screen like wiggling for a beat while you're supposed to be laughing. And that is like the hallmark of Mike Myers' movie, and I feel like that's what goes into the Mike content. Right. And with Shrek, you know, he doesn't have those same mannerisms. Shrek is just kind of like standing there because he's a CGI character. So it's like Shrek has his own mannerisms that are separate from a Mike Myers character. Yeah. So that to me doesn't fit in with the Mike content. Like, you get his voice, you get the accent, but it's almost like beer versus like a kombucha.
Right.
In terms of like the content of the alcohol. Like this is like alcohol, the alcoholic content of kombucha plays a part in the fermentation or whatever. That's like that. Like you need some of the same things that create an alcoholic beverage or a Mike Myers movie, but it kind of like filters out somehow.
Yeah,
I don't really know about the process of making alcohol or kombucha, but based on my like cursory knowledge of that, that's how this relates. Like this is like a non-alcoholic, but it still has some of that content in it.
Right. You need that desperate milking of laughs. Like that's the magic ingredient for a Mike Myers movie. and it's interesting because there's like moments in this where I'm like, that's a Mike line or that's a Mike gesture. Like in the Smash Mouth montage at the beginning, he farts in the swamp and he makes this little like coquettish face.
That's totally Mike.
Slightly Dr. Evil. That feels very Mike inspired.
You know what else too, and this kind of plays into it, is that Mike Myers characters have this Pavlovian response to being submerged in water, where they fart immediately. Because if you think about the other times. Think about the other times we've seen Mike submerged in water. As soon as he gets in the hot tub in Austin Powers, he farts. As soon as Shrek gets in the like mud puddle or whatever the hell, the swamp that he's bathing in, it's not like it just slips out. He like pushes one out.
Yeah, I think we've stumbled on a critical element of Mike Myers comedy, I think.
Water plus Mike equals fart.
We can go into the movie. I think the scene by scene is this is a pretty tight, snappy movie. When I was watching it, for some reason, I watched it on Hulu, and for some reason it said that it was going to be 2 hours long. And I was like, how the fuck is Shrek 2 hours long? Like, what can they possibly... So
I remember noticing that too. Was it really?
I was like kind of mad. Yeah. But then at the end I paused it and it was like, oh no, it's like 90 minutes. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I remember thinking that too, but I'm just like so resigned to it that I'm like, all right. I don't remember it being 2 hours, and I can't imagine a children's movie being 2 hours.
Right. Well, what does Shrek need to do that requires more than an hour and a half? But yeah, it's a fast movie. You know, it uses its fairy tale tropes. So like the plot structure is extremely simple. You know, so I don't think this will take us a long time. So we start with the narration. So this is our minutes to Mike. So we hear his voice at 1:15. And then we see Shrek's hand, which, I mean, again, not Mike's hand. No, Mike didn't even do motion capture, so it barely counts at 1:51. And then full body at 1:59. This is also important. 1:59 is your minutes to Smash Mouth.
Body.
And they time the outhouse slamming open to the body. Like,
you know what's terrible too? This is not about Shrek, but it's about Smash Mouth. So basically, it's the same damn thing. I know all the lyrics to that fucking song.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Sometimes I'll just think about them and I'll be like, damn, like that was real. That had some real lyrics in it.
Yeah.
You really think about it, you know, now that I'm a little bit older, it's like, damn.
This is not a great minutes to Mike, but it's the best minutes to Smash Mouth out of any of the movies that we've watched so far. So yeah,
wait
the
till
movie
it gets
starts
cold.
with like a storybook, and Shrek is narrating it. It's like this is when we establish the point of this movie is to be very irreverent about fairy tales, but specifically Disney's version of fairy tales. You know, like the Snow White looks like Disney's Snow White, and Lord Farquaad's castle is supposed to be like Disney World or Disneyland. You know, it's these very pointed references that were really like Jeffrey Katzenberg grinding an axe about being fired from Disney. Like it's like a kind of a fuck you to Disney. So it has this very Disney-esque opening, and then he rips out the last page and he's like,
presumably wipes his ass with it.
Presumably wipes his ass. We don't see his ass yet, but we're led to believe that he wiped his ass with it. And then he comes bursting out of the outhouse. Smash Mouth is playing, and it's like, this is not your mama's animated film. This movie has attitude. This movie has people wiping their asses, and it's got Smash Mouth.
I like to think that the Smash Mouth isn't like soundtrack. I like to think that Shrek wakes up every single morning and puts All Star on.
It's his alarm, yeah.
It goes about his morning routine.
Yeah, that's he puts on All Star to help move his bowels every morning. This is the first of many montages in this film. Like, I was like, okay, we got the Smash Mouth montage. And then a little later, there's a travel montage, and it's a song by the Proclaimers.
We have the Hallelujah.
The Hallelujah montage, which is still the weirdest fucking thing.
Imagine being Leonard Cohen and you write Hallelujah, and then it is forever associated with sad Shrek. I mean, granted, that's the Rufus Wainwright cover, but it's still fucking written by Leonard Cohen.
Right.
Because I literally, every time I hear Hallelujah, I can't not think about sad Shrek. Also, the travel montage is "I'm on My Way" by the Proclaimers.
Right.
I didn't realize the same group who did my fave childhood song, the 5,000 Miles song.
Yeah, I was like,
makes sense now that I think about it, but
I don't know that many songs by the Proclaimers, but based on the knowledge that I do have, it seems like all of their songs are about traveling long distances.
The rock opera.
The soundtrack is so present in this movie. Sometimes like the needle drops are a little like weird and excessive. Like there's a part where the magic mirror is talking about the different princesses, because so the plot of this movie is that Lord Farquaad, who is this like weird little man with a page boy haircut, and he's the ruler of this fantasy kingdom, but he's just a lord. He's not a king. And by the rules of this fantasy kingdom, he has to marry a princess to become a king. I had a little bit of trouble with this because I feel like that's not how succession works. Like, I think it's like you have to marry a princess to be in the line to inherit the kingdom. It's not just like you have a kingdom, but in order to be a legitimate king, you need to marry any old princess. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I was just
who are his parents too? Like there's nobody else in this kingdom.
Right.
Just him.
I don't understand.
So it's like, why? If that's the case, then why does he have to do any of this shit anyway? He can just be king.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's weird, but I mean, I don't think we're supposed to even think about this that much. But then, so anyway, he's introducing. They do like this dating game style parody, and I was just like, was that necessary? Like what? Like it also seems like they're trying to fill out a soundtrack CD to me.
Yeah, and that part always bothered me because she's been in that tower like since childhood. So when was she enjoying pina coladas and walking in the rain exactly?
Yeah. By the way, I was just looking up the soundtrack, and I see that on the CD it was Rufus Wainwright's version, but the version in the movie is by John Cale, which I didn't even know John Cale did a version of Hallelujah.
He did for Shrek.
I guess. Shrek has caused a lot of people to really lower their standards. All right. We got the Smash Mouth credits, first of many montages. An angry mob come to drive Shrek out of the swamp. He scares them away. And then we find out that all of these fairy tale creatures are being rounded up by Lord Farquaad as part of his goal. So Lord Farquaad has two goals. He wants to become a king, and he wants to make a perfect kingdom, which means no fairy tale creatures. So there's it's just a good old fashioned genocide story, really. Something that I never really noticed until this viewing of the film is that in the scene with the fairy tale creatures being rounded up, they're not just being rounded up, they're being sold. It's like they're being sold into captivity, And this old man who is obviously supposed to be Geppetto brings his talking puppet, Pinocchio, and is like, I have this talking puppet. And the guy's like, I'll give you 5 shillings for him. And Geppetto is like, okay. He sold his wooden son for 5 shillings. I was like, that is cold.
You got to do what you got to do.
And that's when we
can always make another one.
That's true. That's when we meet Donkey. So speaking of this not being like as much of a Mike Myers vehicle as some of the others, I was I don't know, surprised is the word for it, but I found it interesting that this is really an Eddie Murphy movie. This is like secretly an Eddie Murphy movie. Like, I feel like Eddie Murphy probably gets the most lines. I think partly because his whole thing is that he's supposed to just like talk a lot, and partly because Eddie Murphy is a bigger star than Mike Myers. He gets the most lines. He gets the most like laugh lines. I feel like
What's your favorite donkey line?
I think my favorite donkey line is, this is probably a cliche, like a basic one, but my favorite donkey line is when he says I'm making waffles in the morning. I'm making waffles.
My favorite donkey line is, I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder.
That is.
I don't know why, but that one really sticks out to me. That's another one that I always have stuck in my head.
Yeah, I was surprised by how Donkey really walks away with it. And it makes sense because I'm sure that, I mean, frankly, despite Mike Myers costing them millions of dollars by re-recording all of his lines, I'm sure that Eddie Murphy was more expensive than Mike Myers was. So, it makes sense that they got their money's worth with him. Because I was also thinking, I'm always thinking about like, what are your classic Mike catchphrases? And he doesn't really have any. I guess the way he says donkey is like a catchphrase. Just like the Scottish accent in general. And maybe like get out of my swamp.
What are you doing in my swamp? There's not even really catchphrases with Shrek. It's more like motifs, like the ears.
Right.
The ogres are like onions.
Right. Yeah.
Smash
that's like
Mouth.
yeah. That's his Smash Mouth fandom. There's a couple of like Mike Myers laughs.
Like, the singer from Smash Mouth kind of looks like Shrek.
Yeah, they totally run together in my mind. Like,
it's like Shrek, the guy from Smash Mouth, and Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
That's the crew.
I feel like I just like anecdotally, I feel like if I heard like kids quoting this movie, it was probably the donkey lines. It wasn't the Shrek or like Gingerbread Man. I remember Gingerbread Man being a popular.
Stupid buttons flying all the time.
As the donkey escapes, he gets sprinkled with like pixie dust and he flies away. The fairy tale creatures are, like I mentioned Pinocchio. There's the 3 little pigs. There's like, I don't know, various like elves and shit. I think Peter Pan is there.
The 3 blind mice.
3 blind mice, yeah. Again, it's like a lot of nods to the famous Disney versions of these characters. So Donkey escapes. He finds Shrek. Shrek wants him to leave, but he lets him stay the night because Donkey. I mean, I think that probably the reason is because Shrek is lonely. He acts like he doesn't want anybody around, but really he does want people around. He won't show his emotions. So anyway, he takes Donkey back to his hut, but makes him sleep outside. And then the fairy tale creatures, they show up. Shrek wants to get rid of them, so he's going to go to Farquaad and tell him to get rid of them. Meanwhile, we have Farquaad. This is where the gingerbread man is being interrogated. This is the magic mirror scene that I was talking about.
This interrogation thing pissed me off because what was his end goal? He doesn't do anything. They just recite the Muffin Man and then keep moving. He just rips off the gingerbread's legs for no reason.
Yeah, actually, the gingerbread man does not give him any information. Because I feel like the Muffin Man doesn't have anything to do with what they're talking about.
It's just a stupid joke.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. You don't learn anything, and then they just move on. So it's like he was interrogating him.
And the mirror is actually what gets the story moving. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
But they don't. There's no purpose for the interrogation, so it's not even like anything is solved. It's like he just tortured this gingerbread man, throws him in the trash, I mean, you see him later, but he never gets use of his legs again.
I think this is the filmmaker's commentary on the war on terror and the use of torture and how that was not, like the movie about how they killed bin Laden was controversial because it was kind of like saying the torture works. Shrek is saying torture doesn't work. They ripped off that gingerbread man's legs and didn't get any closer to finding Osama bin Laden. So
hey, could be. So
anyway, this is where Farquaad decides that he wants to find Fiona. He's one of the 3 princesses. So he's going to have a tournament because so the thing about Farquaad is he's short and there's a lot of jokes about that.
And his dick size, presumably.
And presumably his dick size. I did find I'm not being Mr. Political Correct. I'm not. I don't care about this, but it did occur to me that this is a movie that like the message of this movie is, don't judge people by their appearances. You can be yourself and you can be an ogre and you're still worthy of love. But this is not a movie that's very kind to our short kings. Like this is pretty. It's like you can be whoever you want except short.
Yeah, you gotta be 6 feet and up. Shrek, you can look like Shrek, but as long as you're over 6 feet,
you gotta be tall. Yeah. I mean, Farquaad is also just like, he's got a terrible personality also. So I mean, maybe he has nothing going for him. He's got that dumb haircut. He's short and he's a dick. But yeah, there's a lot of short jokes. So he wants to marry Fiona, but he's not going to save her himself. So he's going to stage a tournament, and whoever wins the tournament will go bring back Fiona to him. Meanwhile, Shrek and Donkey are traveling. They arrive at the castle. This is that Disneyland scene. My first real laugh in the movie was when they go in and it's like a parking lot and there's a guy in a big like Farquaad mascot outfit and Shrek scares him and there's these like ropes set up, like the loopy line, so to make the line, like Disney World does, to give you the illusion that you're moving, but it kind of like snakes around, and he runs like through those loops, and it takes a really long time to get to the other side. That got a laugh from me.
That was funny.
One thing that the AV Club article mentioned was the early 2000s was a time when being irreverent was considered sophisticated, and I feel like we don't really feel that way anymore, or at least that's not like the dominant mode. We don't necessarily assume that just because something is not sincere, just because something is sarcastic, doesn't necessarily mean that it's smart. So I thought that was kind of an interesting observation, because this is very like, like I said, this is not Disney. This is, and they're very proud of the fact that it's not a Disney movie, and like Disney is phony and cheesy, and they do like it's a Small World parody, but Shrek is hardcore and has jokes about farts. Like, it's like this interesting value hierarchy going on. So this is the big Disney parody, and then there's the tournament. Farquaad's like, oh, it's an ogre, and then he has everybody attack the ogre. Shrek beats them with professional wrestling moves. For some reason, a Joan Jett song.
Good at wrestling?
I don't know.
He's like really good.
Yeah,
you have to practice those moves.
Yeah, he's going like off
does
the
like a
turnbuckles.
suplex. Yeah. What's funny too is like right after I watched, or it was during, I think I started watching Freaks and Geeks because it's on Hulu now, and then I watched fucking Shrek, so I heard Joan Jett and the Blackheart's bad reputation like so many times within the span of like 2 weeks.
So Shrek wins the tournament, and now he's gonna go rescue Fiona. So him and Donkey set off. This is the famous onion speech. I don't know. What is there to say about ogres are like onions?
Yeah. I don't know why. It's just funny when you just take it out of context and state it like it's a fact. Ogres are
right.
Like another tall reference. Or Donkey says that Shrek is really tall.
Oh yeah, right.
That's all the Donkey sees. This is a commentary on how people see really tall men, because they can look like Shrek and act like Shrek, but all that people see are that they're really tall.
So now we have the Proclaimers travel montage. They arrive at Fiona's castle. A dragon attacks and then carries Donkey away. And
presumably to rape him.
Presumably to sexually assault him.
That doesn't end up happening.
There's a lot of weird stuff about the relationship between the donkey and the dragon, and it only gets weirder in the sequels.
Happening. Yeah, no, it definitely does. It doesn't end up happening, and Donkey actually says that is unwanted touch or something like that, which is interesting. You know, subtle teaching of consent in Shrek. Props for that.
And in the meantime, Shrek finds Fiona. It's like the Sleeping Beauty rules. He'll awaken her with a kiss, and then they'll live happily ever after. I did think this was kind of funny. I liked how brusque Shrek was during this. She was like expecting this romantic thing, and Shrek basically just wants to pick her up like a sack of potatoes and just leave because he doesn't care. He's the reason why he's rescuing her is so that he can have his swamp to himself. So they escape. Donkey narrowly escapes being assaulted by the dragon, who we discover is a girl, I guess because she has lipstick and eyelashes, basically.
Yep. Why is she sexually attracted to Donkey?
I don't know. It's like everything about this is it like a fetish? It just seems
you can just insert Donkey inside.
Just seems wrong,
Well, wait until they have children and they're weird donkey dragon hybrid.
Right, he's a mammal. She's presumably a reptile. I don't think that it should work, but we don't have to worry about that. She shows up at the very end. I guess they've been carrying on a long distance relationship because Donkey.
Well, no, they meet up during the Shrek is sad montage.
Right. Okay.
Because she somehow escapes and she still has the thing on her neck, but she's gotten out and she's looking sad and they trauma bond, I guess. Then they're together and then he uses her to help Shrek out and then they have kids.
And so in all of this, I didn't mention Shrek was wearing a helmet, which was enough to disguise the fact that he's literally an ogre. Like I get that it's a cartoon, but
his hands are green.
His hands are green and huge. It's like he's wearing Hulk hands. So she would have to be extremely unobservant. He doesn't have a human shape unless he's like Andre the Giant. Like he's clearly not a regular man.
Maybe, you know what? I can't remember. Maybe he has like gloves on.
I don't think so. I think his hands are clearly
he also has
green.
tiny, weird, skinny legs. His
neck is.
He's built like Big Ed from 90 Day Fiance. Except tall.
Anyway, he takes off his helmet and she realizes he's an ogre. Oh, I forgot to mention this is important because when they arrive at the castle, it smells like sulfur, and of course they have to make a fart joke. But I liked when Donkey says, "So canonically, Shrek's farts are literally lethal," which and I think at the beginning when he farts in the pond, in fact it kills.
Yeah, he kills some fish.
So Shrek can actually kill with it.
Why doesn't he use that to his advantage?
I think this is going to be an important fact to keep in mind for the rest of the movies.
In the beginning, one way to get the fairy tale creatures out of your swamp, just fart and then pile up their dead bodies somewhere else.
Right. There
you go. Problem solved. No one would miss them. They've been sold into slavery. Farquaad doesn't want them.
Yeah. So anyway, he reveals that he's an ogre. Obviously, Fiona isn't excited about that, but there's a reason why. We assume at this point that the reason why she's disappointed that he's an ogre is because he's an ogre. She was imagining being rescued by a human man. But we discover that there's more to that later. There's like a lot of like making camp because basically we need it to be hinted that something is up with Fiona because she gets really concerned that the sun's going down. And this being fairy tale, obviously she changes into something when the sun goes down. And then they show, you could like see your silhouette and it's like something's weird. So, they make camp. It feels like it took them like a day to get to the castle, but it takes them like a week to get back. They sleep multiple nights. It's at least 2 times.
They sleep twice, once in the windmill and once in the cave.
Yeah. So far we've had one Mikeless scene, which was the earlier Farquaad, the interrogation scene. And then we go to a really troubling scene for me this time on this viewing. Farquaad is in it looks like a bed that Austin Powers would have. It's like a circular bed with like zebra print covers. He's clearly at minimum nude to the waist. There's no reason to presume that he's wearing anything below the waist either. And he's having the mirror show him Fiona. It's extremely clear that he's masturbating. Like I don't think that there's any reason to doubt that he's masturbating. And this is, obviously I didn't notice this when I was a kid. But for a 36-year-old man, it's extremely troubling. So anyway, we have that. I don't really have anything else to say about that except that it's fucked up. We're back to Shrek and Donkey and Fiona. Robin Hood appears. He's French for some reason, which, Robin Hood is like probably after King Arthur. He's probably the second most famous like English folklore. But I guess they were like, he's got a little mustache, so he's French.
I hate this part. This part could easily just be edited.
Yeah, this is kind of what I think about when I think about Shrek, and I feel like the sequels are like more and more of this, like goofy dance scenes and. Then
she beats him up or whatever.
Fight, yeah,
fine. But it's also like
karate.
And they do all the stupid like
they do the Matrix,
crouching tiger,
yeah,
and Matrix shit.
Right. Yeah, it feels extremely early 2000s. Which I mean, I think if anything about this podcast, I did not like the late 90s and early 2000s. I just feel like it was just a cultural wasteland. So I don't have fond, when something feels late 90s or early 2000s, I'm like, gross. It's not good for me. So this is probably the low point of the movie, I would say. It's fine, but it's the cringiest part. And I think remarkably for the Mike Myers series, Mike has almost nothing to do with the cringe. He's the least cringy part of this scene. So yeah. That's an accomplishment. And now we have another fucking montage with the Eels song, the My Beloved Monster song. And this is the moment where I feel like Shrek should really suspect something, because this seemingly normal human woman that he's rescued is taking a stick and making cotton candy out of spider webs with flies stuck in it's like this is like clear ogre behavior.
Also, are ogres like do they breathe out helium? Because they blow up those reptiles. Shrek blows up a frog, I think. Yeah. Fiona blows up a snake and turns it into a blue animal, and those ships were flying. So like you can't have them float in the air without helium, but all they did was blow into them. So I'm confused.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about ogre physiology from the scene alone. But it's like the idea is that like they're traveling together and they're kind of finding things about each other that they have in common. And kind of like falling for each other a little bit. So then they're outside of Duloc where Farquaad lives. And they're kind of like coming up with excuses to not go back because, they have this like chemistry or whatever. And this is where they're in the windmill. And then we have, the classic like romantic comedy thing where Donkey discovers that, I mean, this part isn't the classic romantic comedy thing.
A donkey is there.
Yeah, just like in Sleepless in Seattle, where a donkey discovers that Meg Ryan is an ogre.
I feel like Meg Ryan got married to John Cougar Mellencamp and kind of became John Cougar Mellencamp, though, because they both have weird faces. So maybe there's some...
It's a real life Shrek story. Yeah.
When you kiss John Cougar Mellencamp, you become him.
So she explains, a curse was put, because again, we're in fairy tale rules. So a curse was put on her. During the day, she's a beautiful princess, and at night, she's an ogre. And she can only break the curse when somebody kisses her.
Okay, so the curse is that she takes the form of whoever she kisses, provided that it's her true love.
Right.
So what if she had fallen in love with Donkey? Would she become a donkey then?
I think so. I think I feel like that's the rules. She's talking about herself and how ugly she is, but of course she's not talking in the first person. She's like saying, who could love such an ugly beast? And then Shrek overhears her from outside and assumes she's talking about him.
God, he's such a sulky bitch.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole fucking movie. And then from what I remember of the next couple of Shreks, he's still just like sulky and kind of emotionally abusive.
Right. Kind of, it's like a very Mike Myers character, actually.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like the common theme in all of these is that Mike Myers characters are terrible partners, romantic partners. This is the sad Shrek scene with Hallelujah. Farquaad arrives to take her back, and so it's like cutting back and forth between sad Shrek and her. Apparently just having the longest, sad donkey, and then her just having a really long wedding, I guess, because he's still able to interrupt the wedding despite it already seemingly taking place. Or maybe it's him imagining.
She's getting prepared for her wedding, because I think she's like getting fitted for the dress, and that's always how I saw it.
Right. Then Donkey and Shrek have an argument because, Shrek is still being a sulky bitch. And then it comes out that she wasn't talking about him. She was talking about, Donkey was like sworn to secrecy. So he can't say like, oh, she's an ogre too. But he, tells her that wasn't what she was saying. So he was like, okay, I'm going to go break up the wedding. So he interrupts the wedding. And
like in Wayne's World 2.
Just like in Wayne's World 2. Yeah. Exactly. And then it's pretty much it's over. Like it's just I felt like the ending was very abrupt. He interrupts the wedding.
Farquaad gets eaten by the dragon because they break up
by the dragon.
So he's out there.
Which a donkey apparently has no problem with the fact that his future wife and baby's mama just devoured a man whole. He kisses Fiona and she transforms. And she transforms into an ogre. And then, it's like smash cut to Donkey singing "I'm a Believer." Like that's the end of the movie.
They drive off in an onion carriage because they're ogres.
Right. Yeah, because they're ogres. Yeah. And this is kind of like, this is another thing that is like, it's fine here. I mean, it is Smash Mouth's version of "I'm a Believer," so not great. But the whole like wedding scene and it's karaoke and it's like whatever. But then somehow Shrek became associated with karaoke. Like another one of those weird associations. Like I think this was another special feature on the DVD. It was that short. It was like Shrek's Swamp Karaoke. Was that? Yeah,
probably.
It was the Swamp Karaoke Dance Party, and it was like more songs, like a medley. Yeah, a medley of modern pop songs. Oh, here's a wiki Shrek. So Shrek starts singing "Just the Way You Are." After Shrek serenades Fiona, I'm reading directly from wiki Shrek right now. After Shrek serenades Fiona, she erupts into "Like a Virgin" by Madonna, followed by Donkey.
Oh.
Baby got back with dragon shaking her tail behind him. Next comes Thelonious. Who the hell is Thelonious? Oh, it's the execution. Thelonious sings "Feelings." Robin is
Thelonious. My favorite Shrek character.
Then Robin and his henchmen join in with YMCA, Gingy sings part of "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?" Unexpectedly, Farquaad is revealed to be staying alive in the dragon's stomach, while Wolf.
Oh yeah.
The fucking wolf sings "Who Lets the Dogs Out" with Pinocchio on turntables. Insists that they need a drummer. Fiona plays a drum solo. Thelonious sings with Gingy. Shrek also sings and plays on the organ. I know that there's people for whom this is good entertainment. This just
blows.
Sounds bleak to me.
I remember it.
Yeah.
The DVD. I've watched this multiple times.
Oof. Yeah. There's a comment. Dolphin King 2018 here says, "This is good, but it was really disgusting when Lord Farquaad was singing in the dragon's stomach. How was he still alive by then? He obviously died shortly after that, since he appears as a ghost in Shrek 4D, which is set immediately after the first Shrek film."
I mean, he hadn't been digested yet.
He hasn't been broken down by all of the stomach acid. We don't know how dragons' digestive systems work.
Imagine being digested slowly and you just hear this karaoke dance party going on in the background and you are forced to sing "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees while stomach juices are like burning you.
Yeah, I think that's as good a place as any to stop talking about Shrek. You know, it's fine. I'm not optimistic for Shreks 2 through 4. There's no good way to like look forward to the rest of this, because next we have Goldmember, which I already know is going to be borderline unwatchable.
This is the end. This is the last tolerable movie we're going to watch, because the rest are bad Austin Powers films.
Right.
The rest of the fucking Shreks.
Right, which I think are all
Cat in the
downhill
Hat
from there.
and Love Guru.
I think it says it all that out of that lineup, the one I'm looking forward to the most is probably Cat in the Hat. Like one of the worst movies ever. That's the bright spot for me. So yeah, I mean, get ready. It's all downhill from here. Let us know what your Mike birth month is. Let us know what we should start calling the Mike Myers Army, and also just share your thoughts about Shrek and about our next movie, Austin Powers and Goldmember. And we're gonna need all of the support that you can provide. These next 6 months are going to be possibly the worst of our lives. So. Thanks. Talk to you later.